Welcome to Haunted Gaming. In this series, we're gonna read like creepypastas and stuff. It's gonna be very exciting, and we're starting off our first episode with Squidward suicide. So let's get in. I just wanted to start off saying, if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course, most internships aren't, but I did have some perks beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would shit themselves over it. Now, since I work directly with editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the seasons, but the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There's a problem with the series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and two other interns were in the editing room along with lead animators and sound editors for the final cut. We received the copy that was supposed to be the fear of a Krabby Patty and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't the final, animators often put up a mock title card, sort of an inside joke for us, with phony, often at times late titles such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of a Rockabye Bevel. When SpongeBob and Patrick adopt the sea scalp, nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card Squidward Suicide, we didn't think of it more than a morbid joke. When the interns did a small throat laugh at it, the happy-go-lucky music played as normal. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside. Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down, as he has a concert in it and needs to go practice. SpongeBob says okay and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. Bubble splash screen comes up and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things began to seem off. Well, playing a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, sound is synced up with animation, so yes, that's not common. But when he stops playing, the sound finishes as if the skip never happened. There's slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common in the show, but you clearly hear malice in it. Squidward's in full frame looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to the crowd with SpongeBob in center frame, and he too is booing, very much unlike him. That is the oddest thing, though. That isn't the oddest thing, though. What is odd is everybody had hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed, clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more real than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children yet. Shot goes to Squidward, sitting on the edge of his bed, looking very forlorn. The view out of his porthole window is of the night sky, so it is very long after the concert. The unsettling part is the point there is no sound. Literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It's as if the speakers were turned off, though their status showed them working perfectly. He just sat there, blinking in the silence for about 30 seconds, and he started to sob softly. He put his hands, in parentheses, tentacles, over his eyes and cried quietly for a full minute more. All the while the sound in the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a slight breeze through the forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart, side by side. The sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt, anger. The screaming twitches a bit, as if it twisted in on itself for a split second, then back to normal. The wind goes through the trees, sound gets slowly louder, more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is the sound, and Squidward's sobbing sounded real, as if the sound wasn't coming from the speakers, but if the speakers were holes, the sound was coming through the other side. As good a sound as the studio likes to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce sound of that quality. Below the sound, the women sobbed very faint. Something sounded like laughing. It came out at intervals and never lasted more than seconds. So here's my opinion. We watched this show twice, so pardon me if things sound too specific, but I had time to think about them. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently. Something flashed over the screen, as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and ran around frame by frame, but we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled, bloodied, one eye wide, dangling. Over his upturned face popped. He was naked down to the underwear, his stomach crudely cut open, his entrails laying beside him. He was lying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most unsettling part of that, there was a shadow of the photographer. There's no crime tape, no evidence tags or markers, and the angle was completely off for a shot designed to be evidence. It would seem the photographer was the person responsible for the death. We were of course mortified, but pressed on hoping that it was just a sick joke. We were hoping the screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing, louder than before, half body and frame. There's now what appeared to be blood running down from his eyes. Running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in a hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it, you'd get blood on your fingers. Wouldn't sound it now if it were more of a gale blowing through the forest. There's even snapping sounds of branches, the laughing in deep baritone, lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were, but we know we had to. This time the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl no older than the first child. She's laying on her stomach, her barrett's in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye too was popped out and popped naked, except for underpants. Her entrails were piled on top of her, above another crude cut along her back. Again, a body was on the street, and the photographer's shadows were similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit. Wanted to turn. The only female in the room right now. The show resumed. About 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward went silent, as did all the sound, like it was when this scene started. He put his tentacles down. His eyes were now done hyperrealism like the others were in the beginning of the episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, pulsating. He just stared at the screen as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing. This time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud. Most fear-inducing of all his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face. At a heavy rate, the wind sound came back, so did the deep voice laughing. And this time, the photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it in the 4th and backed up. This time the photo was of a boy, about the same age, but this time the scene was different. The entrails were being pulled out from his stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down from it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different. We couldn't tell what. He went on to the next, same thing. He went back to the first day. He went back to the first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor. The animating sound editors gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played out as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift out the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on. We even saw the 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this. Mr. Hellenberg arrived within about 15 minutes. He was confused as to why he was called down there, so the editor just continued the episode. Once a few frames were shown, all-screen meltdown again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer, while framed the face for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out. A deep voice said, "Do it." And we see in Squidward's hand a shotgun. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Real sick blood and brain matter splatters the wall behind him in his bed. He flies back with the force. Last 5 seconds of the episode show his body on the bed, on his side, one egg dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. And then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at it. He demanded to know what the hell is going on. Most people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my own mind and caused me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio here. The CTO called and analyzed what happened. The analyst of the file did show his edit over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before it began viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware as well as glitches, as if the timestamp may have glitched and showed the wrong time. But everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened to this day. Nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came out of it. No child was identified, no clues gathered from the data involved, or the physical clues of photos. I never believed in unexplained phenomena before, but now that I have something happen, can't prove anything about it beyond anecdotal evidence. I think twice about things. So, that was Squidward's suicide. A chilling tale about a mostly fake episode from SpongeBob. Now, there is a title card and a fan-made episode, which I will link in the description. It's on the Creepypasta wiki. But, what would I say about the episode? Well, it had a good use of blood, although the eyes being referred to as hyper-realistic is a bit weird. And, most of the story was pretty good, although I feel like they went a little ham on the child gore, and it just came out of nowhere for no reason. I feel like it didn't need to be put in, like I said, I guess. And, honestly, I'm very curious to see what you guys think about this series in general, and also this creepypasta. So please put down in the comments what you would change to make this creepypasta better, and if you did or didn't like it, and what you think of this series so far. This is Josh, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.